Welcome to Scalable Insights. I'm Larry Dillon, the CEO of the Wendover Corporation, and I have with me today Jeff, the producer. Jeff, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. It's a glorious spring day today.
Very nice outside.
Do you want to hear my Irish truck driver joke?
Let's hear it.
Well, it was a glorious spring day in Ireland, and Patrick, the truck driver, was driving his lorry down the superhighway. And it was such a beautiful spring day like it is today. He decided, you know what? I'm going to drive me lorry off the superhighway and down the country road. Well, he's not traveling down that country road but a mile or two when he gets his truck stuck under a bridge, don't you know? He gets out of the truck. He's looking at his truck in disgust. And wouldn't you know it, just then, Paddy pulls up. One of the local police officers, or as they say in Ireland, Bobby. He says, "Aye, got your truck stuck under a bridge, do ya?" Patrick puts his hands on his hips and says, "No, I'm delivering this bridge and I've lost me directions." So that's my Irish truck driver joke. I can say that because I'm Irish. So, anyway.
Now we cue the intro.
Ba-boom. Well, I'm excited for this podcast, Jeff, because you helped me out with a survey. We did a survey. I was going to a conference, and we did a survey of the folks at the conference. And one of the questions we asked them is, how has your business been affected? And these are commercial movers, some of the most successful commercial movers in the country. And for the last couple of years, during COVID, they got a boost because people were decommissioning. And I'm talking about this. I'm going to talk about a couple specific industries, but I think the lesson is that change is happening so quickly and things are happening so fast that you need to adapt and adopt to meet the times, because COVID spawned some opportunities, and I'll get into details, and that's borne out by the survey that we did. So a lot of the commercial movers, because of COVID, people were like, hey, we don't need as much office space, so we're going to downsize. So we're going to have 25 people work from home and 25 people work in the office, so we don't need so much office space. So there was a lot of work for a couple of years. The movers were killing it. People were moving their homes, they're moving their offices, they're doing this, they're right-sizing. And then all of a sudden, it's like a game of musical chairs, right? Because people have to change their office. They're going from 10,000 square feet to 2,000 square feet, and so all that change was great opportunity for the movers. So last year, everybody was really upbeat, and universally, they were all killing it. This year, different story, and I had you do the survey, and what we found is there was a wide variance. Unlike last year, there was a huge variance between some of the ones that were still killing it, like I think it was 20% were in the highest category, but then there was like 20% that were actually, their numbers had declined, that they year over year, their revenues were down. And I know that from working in certain markets, some customers in certain cities, some major metro areas are sucking wind, and then other markets are still killing it. And that was the thing going to this conference, and it's a microcosm of the bigger picture, that everybody's affected differently by what's going on, and also with the rapid change in technology. If it hasn't affected your business yet, there may come a time where it does. Or even COVID's affected our business, and we've had to adapt. But I think that you really need to constantly analyze your marketplace. And I'll tell you from this conference, so about 5 to 7 years ago, some of these folks have really diversified, like really diversified. I've gotten into logistics and all kinds of different types of tangent opportunities, right? And so some of them that have made that adaptation are absolutely killing it. And then the ones that haven't have adapted, or if they're in markets and haven't figured out, sort of the a strategy to move forward, are sort of struggling. So I think that you really need to think strategically instead of maybe once a year or you're taking some time. I think it's almost like once a quarter. What's going on? Are there other opportunities? Because all along, these other opportunities for the different types of products and services that you could morph into, they've been there all along. And sometimes, and I know that some of the folks massively adapted, and then others, on many different levels. And I think that it really, you should consider like constantly evaluating your marketplace. And one of the things that we were talking about, that Jeff's working on an explainer video on this. And if you're interested in this, I'm going to switch gears now to the phone industry, the business phone industry. So you had a marketplace where VoIP comes onto the scene, 15, 20 years ago, and then it slowly starts to take off. Well, it's not an endless rainbow. There's going to come a time where everybody's sort of flipped over to VoIP. And in the beginning, you have sort of this quiet acceleration of VoIP, and then it continues to increase. There's going to be an inflection point if you're in the business phone equipment business, if you sell business phone systems, if you're an MSP and you use that as a way to get in, or you have customers, there's an inflection point where there'll be an inflection point where the percentage of folks that flipped over to VoIP starts to approach 100%. The chances of you converting someone from a premise-based system to VoIP system obviously diminishes. And there's an inflection point where you're going to see it's increasingly more difficult to get the VoIP business systems. Now let's think about the install base, right? So, as you start to approach 80%, 90%, finding those companies that are ready to switch from premise-based to a VoIP-based system is going to be very difficult. So, and the reason that it's important to understand this is that, from talking to, I talk to MSPs and phone companies every single day. And from what I understand is that once somebody goes to VoIP, there's probably a 55 to 65% chance that they're very happy with the system, and they're probably never going to change. They're just going to keep with the same carrier. Versus a premise-based system, every time somebody would move, 90% of those companies would flip. They'd get rid of the old system and put a new system in for the new office. But now, if you move your office, you don't need to switch the system. You could just unplug the phones and plug them in at the new location into the network. So there's no critical event during that time. Now, what I will tell you, what's changed is the probability that someone that's moving, that has a premise-based phone system, and I know this is getting really technical, But a premise-based phone system is the one where you have the big box in like a phone closet, right? And you have the phones with like the buttons and stuff. If you're moving now and you have a premise-based system, if the probability was 90% you're going to buy a new phone system, it's probably pretty darn as close as you can get to 100%. You ain't moving that old system. That's when you're going to convert to VoIP. So as an example, if you're in that business, it's essential for you to identify those opportunities, and because it may be the last opportunity that you have to sell that person a phone system, because with a 55 to 65, maybe 70% satisfaction rate with the VoIP system, that business is gone forever. Like, they may never change. They may just change out the phones, but they'll probably stick with that system. So that opportunity, it becomes essential for you to really sharpen your skills. It's not like, oh, well, they're moving and maybe in 7 years they'll move again, which is typical. We'll move in 7 years. They move in 7 years. They're just going to keep their system. There's no event that triggers the sale and so it's a different mentality. So if you were in the phone business before, every time they moved, it triggered a new sale. Every time they moved, 90% chance they're going to trigger a sale. So you had all this changeover constantly taking place. But with VoIP, it all happens in the cloud. And all the updates, all the new features, nothing has to happen. It's just, hey, you have these new features. We can offer this. We can offer that. Where with the premise-based systems, some of the premise-based systems were incapable of adapting to some of the new features that would come out. So, and again, I'm going to get really specific here, but it illustrates the point. So what's the strategy? Well, number one, depending on your location, the strategy is going to be, and the what do I want to say? Urgency of identifying companies with premise-based systems is going to be different. The second thing is, it's essential to identify those companies that will be relocating that have a premise-based system, because that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and you really want to focus on that. So we've done some surveys. Some of the markets are at 60% premise-based systems. Some of the older markets, that may have been struggling and they're holding on to the old system. And then some of the markets, it's near 100%. Like if you look at Silicon Valley, some of the more techie areas like Boston, it's going to be a higher percentage. So what do you do and what's the strategy? And again, I'm using this to illustrate whatever business you're in, you really need to do these sort of analytics and seize the opportunity. So what you want to do is survey and find out what percentage of companies that are relocating because if you're a premise-based, if you're sell business phones, what percentage of businesses that are moving in your exact locale for your types of businesses that you do business with? So let's say you only sell phone systems to law firms, engineering firms, and, professional offices of companies with 50 to 100 employees. Let's say that's your market. Well, what you should do is you should do a survey and find out where are you on that arc? Where are you on that migration, that migration to VoIP? So if let's say you find out that 85% of the companies in your market for what you're doing have already converted to VoIP. So now you're only down to 15%. So what happens is you need to identify those companies that are relocating and identify the companies that are relocating that have a VoIP system and go full bore into those companies. If you're an MSP and you want to use that as a way to knock down the door to get in, you need to have an aggressive plan, and the cool thing is you're going after a very targeted group that there's probably as close as you possibly can get to 100% probability that they're going to switch to VoIP. And that may be, and there's a 70% chance, maybe 75% chance that that's the last time you'll have an opportunity to sell them a VoIP system. So it's a concentrated effort. It's a targeted effort to find those companies, identify the ones with a premise-based system, and then go in for the kill, like double, triple, quadruple the effort, especially if you're an MSP, because that's a great way to knock down the door. Also, if you're an MSP and your clients are relocating or some sort of trigger event, and they have a premise-based system, you want to make sure that you know that that is taking place. So that's why it's essential to know that number, right? So that makes sense. If you find 85% of the companies in your market, in your exact target market, have already switched to VoIP, you need to get on the stick, right? Now, let's say you're in another market and 50% of the companies that are relocating still have a VoIP system. So let's say you're in a market and you find out your target market, 50% or 60% of the companies still have a premise-based system. So what that means is there's a lot of opportunity for you. And my suggestion would be to identify all those companies, as many of those companies as you possibly can, the different strategy, and begin a lead nurturing, account-based marketing program to them. So let me give you an example. Let's take a market, like one of the middle markets that has, say, 60,000 companies, like a Baltimore or, one of the middle markets, right? Still an NFL city, but, the smaller of the NFL cities, right? So there's 60,000 businesses. 58% have less than 10 employees. 78% have less than 5. They're not real good prospects. Less than 10. And of the 22% that have more than 10 employees, half of those are gas stations and beauty parlors. So you're down to 6,000. It's kind of a manageable number. But if we look at those 6,000 and say, okay, well, let's say half of those still have a premise-based system, that's only 3,000. You should, my suggestion, call them all the time. Every single quarter, identify those 3,000 in your market for whatever your target market. And let's say your target market narrows that 3,000 down to, let's say 2,000 companies. Get on the phone and call them every single quarter and just say, hey, this is Larry Dillon from Larry's Business Phones. Just reaching out to you. We're a local Baltimore phone company or an MSP. We sell business phones. We sell VoIP. We service phone systems. I don't know if you're in the market right now, but if you are, I just sent you an email that says Business Phones Baltimore. It's got a list of all our services that we provide. That would be my suggestion, is not even waiting till they move, but like constantly. It's a manageable number, for, like a couple grand a month. You could stay on top of all of those companies so that when it comes time for them to move or change or convert to VoIP, you are the number one choice in their mind. Because after four quarters, even after the third quarter, after 9 months of just a drip voicemail and email and maybe direct mail campaign, you want to make sure, because it's so targeted, and once they go to VoIP, it's all over. And if you look at some of the research, some folks are saying 3 years, some folks are saying 5 years, it's all going to be VoIP. And again, it depends on your market. Every market's going to be different. So you need to do that research. First order of business is do the research on your market. So if this makes, versus the old days, it's like those 6,000 businesses every 7 years, they're going to buy a new phone system when they move. Every 7 to 10 years, they're all going to buy new phone systems. So it was a ringing cash register. So that's an example of how that business has changed. Versus now, I mean, there's going to be a lot of companies that from now till the time you retire, they ain't changing their phone system. Because the systems can adapt and grow with them and make all kinds of changes. All they got to do is flip out the phone, which you can just order it online and plug it in. So if you're in that, in the phone business, do the research, do the survey. I recommend. So, and it applies to every industry. It applies to every industry. And having that information, most of your competitors will not do it. And once you have that information, that's going to tell you what the marketing strategy is going to be. So versus if that same market where there's 6,000 businesses and 90% have already converted to VoIP over IP, that means there's only 600 companies left that you want to, 600. And it's one and done. There's a significant probability that they'll never switch again. And then they're getting new businesses that come on board, and that's a whole other strategy. So it's a completely different strategy, and the math will tell you exactly what you need to do. And if you want more detail on this, so this applies to any industry. Like I said, the moving industry, they recognize that things were changing. There's less people in the office, so less office people to move. So they had to adapt and expand their product offerings, right? So what's happening in your industry? And then also, are these other opportunities? And the cool thing is 90% of companies won't adapt. They won't adapt. I mean, we had to adapt. We lost most of our telemarketers. They didn't pass away, but, due to COVID, sort of went home and decided not to work anymore. So we actually had to open up a location in the Philippines. We had been doing some outsourcing there, and then that sort of forced us to open up our own company. And man, that has just opened up so many opportunities for us. We're now doing appointment setting. We have phenomenal talent in that country at, much higher levels that's available to us. We actually just revamped our entire sales team. Almost half of our sales team now is folks from the Philippines, and they're killing it. They're killers. So that's been a good thing for us because we had difficulty hiring sales reps, especially during COVID. But problem solved. So for all of you, and that's another thing that's happened with this this change in the economy and with COVID. Again, at the conference, like, people are having a really difficult time finding good hunters in terms of salespeople. They're really struggling. Like, almost everyone is really struggling finding hunters. So, how has the market changed? How do you adapt to that? Is there another opportunity due to this change? And I think that there is. So, whatever your industry is, those are a couple examples of folks that have adapted, and how to look at your market, how to use data, and how to do the surveys. So the surveys are a wonderful way to find out what's going on in your marketplace. And listen, with generally speaking, a couple hundred surveys, 300-400 surveys in your market will give you a really good idea of what's going on, because the universe generally is 6,000 to maybe 20,000 businesses of size in your market, and a couple hundred surveys will really give you insight as to exactly what's going on with your customer base and your prospects. So that's what I have for you today. Adapt and run the numbers. Find out what's going on. It's well worth it to analyze your marketplace. Have an independent party. Talk to your customers, your prospects, and find out what's going on in your marketplace for your market segment. So that's what I got for you today, Jeff.
Cool.
And Jeff's got a cool explainer video that's going to come out probably in the next week or so. So you want to check that out. If you want to talk to me about any of this information, about analyzing your marketplace, about doing surveys, we also do inside sales now. We have the relocation leads. But I love talking about this stuff. There's always an opportunity. Don't forget to
Like, comment, subscribe.
That would make Jeff happy.
Yeah. What else can we think of?
I don't know.
Donations? Tips? No, I'm joking.
But so really appreciate it. The podcast is going well. We have 300 followers or so.
Yeah, and climbing. And then our cumulative views is, I'd say, probably well over 200,000.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. So, and any suggestions that you have for us, any suggestions for guests, let us know. When is the next podcast with David Perry coming out?
Next week.
Next week. So you want to definitely check that out. David Perry, phenomenal business consultant, used to work for us and uses these techniques to take companies that he's typically taken companies that the first one was 15 million to 45 million in a year. Same number of reps, same opportunities. And then the second deal he did was 60 million. The VC brought him into a $60 million technology company in Europe and took them from 60 million to 120 million in 2 years. Took one company from 2 million to 8 million. He's done this 15 times in the last 20 years, like every single time. And it's just executing on the opportunities, tightening up the sales force. But the guy's just a wealth of information. So check that out next week, David Perry.
Next Tuesday, to be exact.
Next Tuesday. So have fun. Happy selling. Good luck with your business.